Welcome to the Vital Path podcast, where nervous system science meets spiritual growth through honest conversations with men who've done the work.
Most men were raised to be good boys, to stay quiet, please others, and suppress their emotions. On this episode of The Vital Path, we're exposing how this nice guy conditioning fuels anxiety and ruins your relationships by keeping you disconnected from your own truth. Today, we're giving you the roadmap to stop performing and start leading. We're going to unpack how to reclaim your masculinity, face the shadows of anger and grief, and finally move from people-pleasing to true integrity, so you can lead in your life and in your relationships. I'm joined by Lucas Salame, a healer and coach whose no-nonsense approach to shadow work delivers the tough love truths that men often avoid. Together, we've helped hundreds clear these old patterns that transforms not just your mental strength, but how the world and women respond to you. It's time to stop being good and start being the man you were meant to be. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Vital Path podcast. Today, I have a special guest, Lucas, the New Age Sage. He is a spiritual guide, spiritual teacher, healer, and somebody I know as a truly deep thinker, a writer, creator, friend, and husband. Thanks for being on the show.
Excited to be here. Let's get going. I'm ready to dive in.
Awesome, brother. Well, for you, marriage is relatively new. And I'm curious to know what has changed becoming a committed partner in relationship, and what have you learned from being in marriage as of late?
All our souls and my soul came here to, the cliched saying is, but the truth is to expand into its highest consciousness, its highest vibration. We come here into this earth school to accomplish that. And I've always been a seeker. Well, I'm trying to kill that nowadays. I think a seeker is an illusion. But that's a whole other story. But I've always tried to do things that expand me into my highest vibration that I can. That's led me into various different modalities of healing and being and different pathways. I've done the psychedelic route. I've been an addict. I've done many things, and it's always been under the same realm of finding myself. And nothing's been close to what marriage has taught me in the thesis of expanding myself into my highest vibration, highest consciousness, which essentially is merging the ego with the higher self. And marriage has been a vehicle that's done that unlike anything else, because I believe I'm here to be the divine masculine. I think I'm one of those people who believes in gender roles and polarity. I believe that. And if men are honest with themselves, they feel the best and most powerful in themselves when they're aligned with that archetype of really being their divine masculine, whatever that means, or the king archetype, whatever you want to call that. I believe men are in their strongest when they're in that frequency. And there's a certain stakes to being in marriage where your wife reflects back to you very vividly when you're not in that place, and that one mirror is very powerful. Right? 'Cause you're out in the world and you're single and you're bachelor, you have a whole roster, you're seeing a bunch of girls. It's hard to get that stakes. Business can do it to you, but it's really women catch things unlike anything else. And shit doesn't fly with them that would fly with other things. So there have just been very potent and powerful moments where I've had to expand and grow or I would have lost her. And those moments have caused immense growth. So I'd say that that's been the piece it's been a very effective vehicle to expand me to my highest consciousness through her intuitive wisdom.
I can't think of a better dojo than a committed relationship to really learn about oneself. And it takes a certain type of person to be willing to commit to that subtlety of love and the constant growth between two people in partnership. And at least for me, in a lot of the trends that I'm seeing online about monk mode, lock in, build, it's so contrary to union and partnership. And I actually see the trends of Americans who are just marrying later. So I'm curious, you said you chose a great partner, but how did you know she was the one, and why did you choose to commit that way?
I've been an addict, drugs, sex, rock and roll, you name it. That's been my journey. And I became very familiar with how I was using dating and female validation as an addiction. And I was trying to prove my masculinity through the woman I can conquest. It gave me, with certain friends, I became the guy that like always got the girl, and that was me. And I had ego in that. I was very much like, yeah, that's me. I'm the guy that can take a girl. It sounds so stupid and retarded, but that was me. I'm just being honest here. I felt validated that way. I felt validated by the caliber of woman I could attract, and it was a miserable and low way of living. It had nothing to do with what actual masculinity is, because I was constantly outsourcing my center and validation. So once I discovered that and realized that, this isn't what masculinity is. I'm constantly outsourcing myself for validation. I'm being needy. I had to go within and take a step back and really, get to know myself and to be with myself and be present. And I got to a place where I really didn't need much. I didn't really need anything, and I was happy being alone. And I was like, okay, if a wife comes in, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a queen and to really experience a sacred union and family and all that. And I just didn't. I didn't buy the whole narrative I was being sold by the red pill or masculine most men, which is that get money, get status, become your high, you become that person where you have like the pick of the litter, and then choose your wife. For me, it was just yeah. If I think I'm at the right frequency to find the right person, and I'm pretty intuitive, so when I met her, I mean, I just knew. That sounds like cliched and some stupid Disney movie, but it was that. Like I really just knew. My within 10 minutes, my line was, we've had past lives together, and she agreed immediately. So like, I mean, that's just some stuff you can't really make up. But so there was a mix of intuitive knowing that it was her and that it'll always be her, and also this complete dissatisfaction, dissuasion with modern dating culture.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and polygamy and polyamory, but yeah, that's
Yeah, at least for me too. I had to climb to the top of that mountain to see through it, and what I found on the other side was just empty. There's more to the depth of a union and a partnership that requires so much more of us as men. And so you touched on, this season of conquest, and then taking some time away to really recognize where you're at, meet your own needs, and come from a completely full cup. And from there, you were able to call in partnership.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious, with that and the way that the modern dating scene is laid out, how would you recommend somebody going about that process of really overcoming conquest to seeking union?
You're gonna attract the level of consciousness you're at. So if you're a man who's stuck in the lust game, which I was, no judgment, I get it. You're watching porn a lot, you're looking for sexual conquest, that's the level of consciousness you're gonna be in. And if you do attract someone who's a good woman, you're gonna end up hurting her. Because I've been there. I've been with good women, and I didn't cheat or treat them badly, but I was vibrating at the consciousness of lust. That I'd still flirt with other women. I would still see a girl at the gym or walking around. I'd be this feeling of like I want that, but nothing ever. I didn't do anything with that, but that had to be cleared, because there's a lot of men get into a relationship and they quickly get bored, and then they entertain fantasies of potential new woman who could entertain some kind of spark or fling, and that's a pattern that most men face. So there's real danger in that. And what my guru always told me this, and it took me a long time to click in, but he said that humans cannot tolerate ease, and tolerating ease is the medicine. And once you actually learn to tolerate ease, that's enlightenment, where you can tolerate just things being easy and good, and not needing to strive or to suffer or to grasp. To tolerate ease is the Buddha way, really. And once you find a good woman who's not toxic, she's healthy, she's feminine, she's loving, Of course, she has her own chaos and her own moments of emotional turbulence, but relatively, she's a good woman. Can you let it be easy?
Mm-hmm.
Can you just let yourself be in a marriage where there's barely any conflict? Your communication is good. You love each other. Can you be in that? And most men, if they hear that, will say no, because they're in this state of consciousness where their ego needs validation. They need to know that females validate them still. They can still go, conquest a whole village and spread their seed. It's a consciousness. And I'd say almost every man's in that place, but it's just a reflection of they cannot tolerate ease. Men say they want a good woman, they want a good wife, but can you actually handle that? And handling that is tolerating the ease that comes with that. That's a whole different game. I didn't know that. I couldn't be in there. My past relationship was 3 years, and it was beautiful and amazing, and I didn't do anything wrong, but there was still a part of me that was itching for a new experience. That it was kind of like if there's an argument or something bad happened, I kind of look like, I wish this ends so I can go, run after that other girl. That's most men, is they really can't handle that ease, and that's a reflection of a bigger issue. So I'd say men, like, can you actually handle ease? Can you handle a calm, loving, stable home? And if you come from if you come from a chaotic environment, which I did, then that's not familiar. So it's training yourself to handle ease and stability. But the ego needs drama.
In a way that's counterintuitive, I relate to that. It's embracing ease. So much of my life and my turmoil has been through struggle and challenge. And there's a part of me that thrives on that, overcoming hard things, which I think is important for discipline and masculinity in some sense. But in relationship and other domains, in fact, it can be easy, and embracing that possibility that it gets to be in flow and through one's natural gifts and from a place of being. That's a truly profound perspective shift. And how would you invite somebody to embrace more ease in their life? Because it's a prayer I've had up for a while.
Yeah, and I'll answer that, but I just want to add one more thing quickly. Is that if you're the masculine and you're actually vibrating ease, you're vibrating peace, you're vibrating groundedness, what's counterintuitive is that when she's emotional, when she is hormonally charged, call it chaotic, whatever words you want to use, when you're vibrating ease and you're in a place in your nervous system where her emotional fluctuations cannot disturb you, then she actually ends up joining your ease very fast. Is that if you sit there in ease, an easy nervous system is contagious.
Yeah.
It's contagious. I was also taught that the highest frequency in the room is when it dominates the room. Mm-hmm. So, and the highest frequency is peaceful. You put Jesus or the Buddha in a room, people chill out. That's just the way things go. So if you're a man, your nervous system's at ease, she'll join that ease. But if you're chaotic and then at any moment she's turbulent, you then get reactive and why the fuck she like this is so annoying. Then it amplifies that. So what I'm saying is that a man tolerating ease in himself and being there actually invites her into the experience of ease. But if you're a man who's constantly chaotic and her emotions cause chaos in you, then you also add turbulence to that. So it's like, can you let yourself be easy even if the world's spinning? Because the world's always going to be spinning. We live in the fucking matrix. That's going to be the case.
Yeah.
So, and then the question you asked is, how can someone start experiencing ease? Is you know this better than me. Is that it's a reflection of your nervous system state. There's a common sentiment that your state precedes your story, which is a fact. And Sacred Union is an awesome example of that. Is if I'm frustrated or angry, and I speak from that energy, no matter what I say will contage her nervous system. Even if I say the most beautiful thing in an angry, fearful frequency, that'll contaminate her. It's an awesome experiment if you try if you're in partnership, is that like literally say the same exact thing from fear and anger and say it from love and a calm nervous system. It just felt like a different fucking statement. It's a whole different experience. So I've learned that literally the state you're in creates your reality. People think that it's your people have this new age sentiment that I completely disagree with, which is that your thoughts create your reality. Mm-mm. No, your nervous system creates your reality, because your nervous system creates the stories in your mind, and those stories then can lead to reality, but it begins with your nervous system. So it's the more regulated you are, the more easy your life becomes. So it's a regulation piece, and how you actually learn to regulate yourself is a complex equation that that's a whole different ballpark we can talk about. But it does begin with your nervous system state as a man. That's paramount.
Mm-hmm. That's so well said. And you picked on some great points. We step outside in this world and it's going to confront us with the opposite of ease, and making sure the home is a place of ease. And both our centers as men are coming from that place.
Yeah.
It's arguably, one of the most valuable, it's a new currency that we're referring to in masculinity, is being able to have that level of self-containment, self-regulation. And what that provides for the people around us is just a place of peace to rest into and rely on. And we're touching on some pieces about masculinity. And I love your perspective on what that is and what it's been for you in terms of the new currency of masculinity.
Mm-hmm.
Would you mind sharing more about that?
We're at a place on Earth where, women are capable and powerful enough and have the freedom to some extent, to a large extent, to kind of be the man for themselves, in the sense of we're at a point now where, women are out earning men in some regards. They're, doing better in schools, or much higher, more likely to get a college education. They're doing better in certain high performing jobs. We're at a place where that's shifting. So it's not, I obviously, I think it's important for a man to be able to protect and provide, but it's not as crucial and essential nowadays. Like, high quality women aren't like desperately seeking that. I'd say the women who run around on the streets, as they say it, they're the ones who only look for status as a prerequisite for union. I think a high quality woman, it's a part of the seasoning, but it's not the full buffet. In the full buffet, and I treat many women. I know many women. It's the same thing. Is that it is your depth and your groundedness. That is the currency. I come from wealth. I come from money. I've been in that. I grew up in that world, and I can see every multi-millionaire, billionaire that I know. Their wife is either miserable, or she's just a terrible person. And it's shown me that money and status isn't what helps her feel safe in her heart. That when I've seen marriages where the woman looks melted into what you would perceive as a very feminine state, the variable that isn't always there is status or money. That's not the constant. It's just not. We think it is, but it's not. The constant I see in marriages where the woman's melted is the man is deeply grounded and firm in himself and very peaceful and at ease. That is a variable I see constant in any relationship I see where the woman is melted into her heart. That's the only thing I see constant. So once I pick that up, I was okay, successful marriage relationships, a man's status may open the door to more women in his pool. That's true. But the ones I see have actual successful longevity, where the woman's in a state where the man actually wants to marry her. So marriage I see is man ends up attracting a babe or a good woman, but then they're both fucking miserable over time. It's a common pattern I see, and the wife hates herself and she hates the man and not having sex. It's a common pattern. So it's okay, that's not working. These marriages I see that are working is the man's just a fucking... He's a gangster in the sense of just being at peace and ease. He isn't requiring her ease and her peace to be at peace himself. He's not requiring the world to be fixed to be at peace himself. He's not waiting for the matrix to stop being crazy for him to be at peace himself. That's the constant I see. So that's the currency. It's like, okay, if you want to attract some fucking model from Russia who isn't grateful, go for it. Run the money game, run the status game. Sure. But if you want a successful, juicy relationship where the woman is truly enjoyable to be around, her heart's open, she's really loving, her radiating femininity and maternal energy, that's a consequence of you being as grounded and deep in yourself as possible. That creates that experience. So if men want the experience of real, maternal, beautiful, loving wife, which we all do deep down, the way to get it is to deepen yourself as deeply as possible and ground your breath and ground your nervous system to a place that's so potently tranquil. That then opens that experience up. That's been my experience, at least.
I love what you say there. It's a common trap that status and ego that we saw maybe our fathers pursue, or other people of objective influence. They have these external markers signaling status and significance, when in fact, what pattern you're truly speaking to is the love and connection that's available between two people, that requires the regulating nervous system, requires the depth, requires the ease, requires the ability to communicate and stay present. All of these subtle soft skills that aren't necessarily virtues that are on the outside. And it's such an ego trap where we think we need these things to attract a certain type of woman. And in some sense, it's important for men to know, are we going for that Russian model, somebody to just be the trophy wife? And if that's your path, God bless you, and go for it. But if somebody's really seeking a divine partnership and unionship in that way, it requires more of the inside out internal game. And you and I both have come from a degree of wealth and privilege.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a beautiful thing because I got to see what was atop that mountain.
Mm-hmm.
I got to be around millionaires and billionaires who had families that their kids were suffering. Their
Mm-hmm.
wives weren't in their feminine. They weren't happy, and filling that void with shopping, trips, whatever it was, alcohol, to fill those voids, when it was actually the man who wasn't showing up and leading, wasn't showing up from a place of depth, from a place of compassion and peace, these higher level virtues. And so what did that teach you about masculinity growing up from that type of background?
From my own personal experience, because I come from, wealth. My dad's am I a second generation? My dad immigrated from Ecuador, and then accomplished what we call the American dream. I don't know how true that dream is, but he accomplished it. Very insane story. That's a whole different rabbit hole. But he really crushed it, killed it, and made it to the highest level possible. And so I've always had resources. I've always had money, and since I've been young, and so that means I've had the resources and status, and with that, I was able to attract a lot of women. And also I learned the whole, in college I was, lead guy at a frat. So I played, I know what that is. So I had popularity, money, resource, whatever you want to call it. I was able to attract women, but the caliber of woman wasn't there. So I kept attracting women who weren't the highest interest for me, and I would push away women who actually had the juice, the real deal. That was a common pattern for me. It's okay, I have resources, I'm popular, I come from this family. Why am I, attracting these kinds of women? Like I'd attract a real amazing woman, and it just wouldn't really work out. And that was a lesson to me that, resources, money, and status opens a door for you to have different sexual opportunities. That's true. That's just the way it works in this dimension. But you opening the heart and inviting in a woman of the highest caliber, a queen really, that has nothing to do with your resources. It may have something to do with your capacity to gain resources, because skill and certain, power comes in that. I get that. But what really opens a door to the experience of a higher woman is that depth we talk about, is that nervous system grounding, is that ability to have an open heart, to, master some of the skills in this relationship dojo. That's what wins. So I played that game, using resources as a way to attract the woman. And what was also funny is that, men don't understand this about women, is that the more they buy them things, the more they don't even want them. So it's a whole other fucking rabbit hole. Is that women actually want to hear you say, no, you can't have that. That's a whole different fucking rabbit hole.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like the game men play that they think resources will attract them. The real queen loving mother, that's not true. They can attract them a woman who wants the resources, it's transactional. That's true. But for a woman who has an open heart, the archetype we're talking about, maternal, feminine, that is a reflection of your depth, presence, and your ability to lead and actually be strong. That's a whole different thing. So I'm not saying it's not important to go out there and make your nut. Like, I'm not that cool, great, 100%. But don't think that you just doing that is what's going to create your nervous system and depth in a way that'll attract the best woman out there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a whole different ballgame. That's the inner work. That's the outer work's valid. That's the game we all have to play. The inner work is what really attracts the queen.
And you touched on some brilliant points. The transactional nature that comes with that. And if one gets into a relationship that is an exchange of resources, it has to stay that way for both people to remain in partnership. And I found that too, to just be empty at the end of that rainbow. It's like, where's the depth in this? Where's the true connection, the unconditional love that's available? And you're talking about, these concepts of depth, which was my word of the year and has brought me to my absolute knees at times because of the inner work that's required in one's own willingness to go within and face those shadows, to face one's own darkness. And as a byproduct, presence becomes available, in that stillness and the silence that's underneath the thoughts that are perpetuated by our psyche. And, in this world, as a man who's in a relationship, taking all these things into account, how do you see our responsibility in relationship to take on both all of our fears and darknesses and shadows, but also that of our woman or our partner? How do you navigate that from the day to day? What is your take on full responsibility, as a masculine man in relationship?
Yeah. I mean, this is where people often disagree with me. That's cool. That's fine with me. People can disagree with me. That's all good. I think that, I learned this from my father even, and so he's taught me some very valuable lessons in his life and how he's, conquered the matrix certain ways. In his own work, whenever a subordinate fucks up, I've never seen him take it as a subordinate's problem. He says it's always his fault. When someone fucks up that works for him, it's always like, I fucked up. That he takes full accountability for anyone under him that makes a certain decision. I've seen that in leaders, that when someone who's on their ship fucks up, it's the leader's fault. And I've seen him take it as a reflection of him. And I've seen that in the business world, and in sports worlds, whatever, in that kind of war mentality, that the leader takes responsibility. So, if I do believe men should lead, I do believe that, and women actually want it too, even they don't want to admit it nowadays. They do want that. That's just the truth. If you're a leader, you're leading her, it's your ship. So whatever happens is your fault. It's hard accepting that and saying that, but if you want to truly be a leader, you're leading the ship. It doesn't mean that if she irrationally reacts to something and is getting emotional for something that's not valid, that then that's essentially your cause or your fault. But this is where it gets nuanced. Okay, so I'd say, we've all been a woman. We know women. If you've been with them, it's that they often get, if they're in an emotional state and they're in a certain part of their cycle, or they're upset or moody, that if there's any slight deviation or disagreement, they're gonna activate. They just activate, and then the man's like, what causes this is so irrational? I don't understand this reaction. And then there you go. There's the modern tango. I understand that my wife's sometimes or often ability to get wrapped up in her emotions, I didn't go in there and create that. But the way I steer that and guide that energy, that's my responsibility. So like the captain, if the I don't know sailing exactly, so my analogy isn't gonna be accurate. The person controlling the sail, I don't know how that word escaped me. the sail, he's all flustered. How do I guide that? How does the leader go in there? Okay, calm down, grab this thing, let's go. Right. So I think that my wife getting emotionally irrational and feeling herself in a way that she's expressive, which is beautiful. That I didn't create that, right? But my ability to steer that energy, that's my problem. So if I guide and steer her emotional energy in a way that's not conducive to our relationship, that's my fault. And that's whenever things fuck up, it's this pattern. She gets irrationally emotional over something. I think it's all men's problem. Something happened and her reaction is not rational in regards to the stimulus that caused a trigger. That's always the thing. How the fuck you react this way? It's so small. You don't understand it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then when I bring that energy, like, what the fuck are you doing? Please stop. Like, it's just, I can't do this right now. I'm like, the sail went away and the ship's about to fucking drown. So it's like, how do I steer this energy in a way that's conducive to our relationship, right? And I've learned, and each woman's different, but I can sense that, okay, there's times where she's crunchy and reactive. I literally just do nothing. Like I just sit there calmly, and I feel my heart. And I just sit there. I just allow her to be that way, right? The ego wants to control her state. The inverted masculine wants to control her emotional state. The awakened masculine guides her emotional state in a way that's most conducive. So sometimes I'll just sit there and just literally vibrate love and just stay calm myself. That often works the best way. It's a frequency war. Sometimes, which is, men have to be careful when it comes. Sometimes she's seeking a solution, and men don't know when they want that. And if she's seeking a solution, give her that and show up for her. If it's, for instance, I'm trying to think of an example. Last night, I'm making a drink for myself. I just a sauna, some electrolyte mix. I hear like and then fucking her hands wide open, blood everywhere. In that moment, I'm like, she was like, "What would I do?" I was like, "Fucking grab the towel, put it on her hand. We're going to the hospital right now. Get in the car. Let's go. I don't care what to say about this. We're going." That's kind of those moments where it's like, the solution could be there. She has a problem and she's like, I'm facing this thing in myself, this wound, or I have this issue. Then you can get in there and solve it. But it's learning, how do you steer her energy in a correct way? Because whenever things go wrong, I dealt with her energy in an incorrect way.
Mm-hmm.
So that I led us incorrectly. It doesn't mean not to shame myself when that happens, but it's like a note being like, this didn't work. Okay, next time let's try a different strategy. So I think it's on men to guide her emotional state correctly. That's a leader. That's what a leader does. I mean, people can disagree with me and say, but if you're a leader and you want the dynamic, then you have to guide her emotional state
and take on more responsibility in that way.
Yeah,
and some people are not willing to do that. I love some of the nuance you were talking about, like when these situations arise. And what's really helped me as well is seeing these, call them relationship ruptures, as opportunities to come together more, stronger, deeper, and recognizing that I'm so human. I can't read your mind. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do. Sometimes that requires immense humility to ask the other person, like, what do you need here? How can I support you? Or instead of just jumping into problem-solving fix mode, which tends to be how I can operate as well, just taking a beat and breathing and being like, okay, is there something immediately within my control I can do to offer to help support? Or is it in my best interest to just ask the other person and how to meet that person's needs in a way that I can't fully understand? So you're right. It's both just a depth of presence and being willing to sit in that storm.
Yeah.
And what comes with it.
Yeah. What's tricky, I get that, I understand that. What's tricky, I don't know what your take on this is. Maybe you can add something here, is that, women will always want us to read their minds.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just a common issue and complaint I hear that, that I'm not saying it's possible. Not all of us are fully psychic. I get that. It's a hard thing. But what comes with the nuance is that like they want us to lead them in their state. Right? I don't know the exact answer, but it's often that I've just learned what certain position or emotion in herself requires a certain move from me. That it's just like they want to see initiative in you, rather than, because when you say they don't want to be in a position where they have to lead themselves out of a certain state. That's what I see when I've done that. Of like, tell me what you need. It's like, it kind of flips things in my experience. It doesn't work as well, But I'm still a human. Recently, this is where I'll share something that I'm not proud of, but it didn't actually lead to that much issues. Is one day she was especially fucking voracious and emotional, and it was unfair. It was unfair. I men often feel like that they really didn't mean harm. They didn't intend to do harm, and she's very emotional, and I literally got to a place where I just broke down. It was, I never say this, but I think it's a wound for telling when it's being too much. But I was at a place where like it was so much I thought was so unfair. I literally just started breaking down, crying. And that's like the last thing you tell men to do. And I've always told myself never to do that. But I literally started breaking down, crying. And she immediately just softened, and we took some like an hour space, came back to an explosion of love, and it actually worked out. I don't know how or why, but it just was. Sometimes men got to be brave enough to feel. I really was at capacity. And actually, this is what observation I made is that underneath male anger is sadness.
Mm-hmm.
It's sadness. It's grief. So I've learned that, like, I don't get angry at her. That's like the last thing women want. So I just felt incredibly sad and disappointed that this was happening. And the male ego goes straight to control and anger. Like, what the fuck? But I literally was just like, this is just sad. This breaks my heart, that this is happening. And I just allowed myself to cry. I didn't say anything about it. It just happened. And it moved things. So, this is where nuance comes in. It's, I'm doing my best to tell men, hey, there's certain things that you should do and aim to, but if you got to break down sometimes, it's a whole lot better than you yelling at her and fucking screaming at her. So, and if it comes from the heart, it's all good. So I'm just saying that to say that, this stuff isn't black or fucking white, and that we're all human. And that's the first time it's happened for me ever, where the feminine intensity was so strong that, and it wasn't anything bad or wrong. It just in that moment for where I was that day, it was too much for me. And I broke down. And surprisingly led to more love.
Yes, that's so real. And we talk about aspirations and what we aim for and how we intend to show up. And then there's moments where it's too much. We get triggered, myself included. And that's when I've found, okay, take off the mask, take off the armor and just be with the emotion that is and not need to problem solve and fix in those moments. So, what I heard was in that moment, there was a trigger. There was something that was just too much in that instance. And your willingness to go there and feel the thing with her, be in the muck with her was actually what allowed for that explosion of love on the other side. And so thank you for just being courageous in that way. Because we talk about, all of the responsibility that it takes. And then there's moments where that just doesn't happen. And in fact, those can be the moments that bring us even closer together in the long term, if we're willing to go there and sit with the emotion. And it's such a full range experience, right? And knowing that when to not take anything personally and when to not, project anger or what somebody should do onto that situation. And instead of just, being with what is, and if it's sadness, crying with the person, being able to go there and access these places to then come together stronger on the other side.
Yeah, I think I learned is I didn't blame her. I think the difference between like male reactive, like violent rage that you're trying to like squash your grief and your sadness. It was very much like, it wasn't like I've done it when I was younger where I was like, you did this, what the fuck? And then you're kind of tearing up at the same time. It really just was, I just broke down. I didn't say it was her fault or her problem. It just happened. And it actually worked out. Obviously I can't do that every fucking 2 days, but, but that moment, it just happened.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's beautiful, man. I hope you're enjoying this conversation. If you've been feeling dysregulated or overwhelmed lately, I want to help. I created a nervous system quiz that gives you a personalized practice that shifts you back to presence, calm, and connection. It's free, takes 5 minutes, and are the exact tools I use myself. Just click the link in the show notes to take it. Now back to the show. And we're kind of touching on a theme of just how do we understand women better? These beautiful creatures of both the storm and the sunshine and the full range of what it is to be a man, in relationship. And, how with that strong masculine pull that you bring to the relationship, how do you navigate what that brings out in your women? And is there an aspirational nature to what it is, what does it come with in relationship to be both this strong masculine and also the full range of the human experience?
I have a friend of mine very powerful. She could snap her fingers and you're in complete hypnosis. Literally, like when you're in the ether. Unlike it's literally DMT from her fucking own energy. It's wild. People like that exist here, which is awesome. And in that, I met my higher self. I was with my higher self, And my higher self was that like serious king divine archetype, just like pure Shiva, still consciousness, strong, just complete radiance. And I felt it. I met him. I knew him. And then I came back to my body and I was like, that's you and you're a human. That is me in my highest state, and I'm in the fucking matrix. And I'm a human. And I think it's very important that we don't forget that. Not to use our own humanity as an excuse to not face our own wounding, which many people do. Oh, I'm just a human. That's some bullshit. But at the same time, it's complicated where it's like, I am that, and I'm a human. And it's like, how do we create space for humanity as a way to enter that consciousness, right? So it's we came here to learn through separation and learn through inversion and opposition. So it's like, how can we actually learn to use the emotionality, the sadness, the grief, the human experience, the catapult to enter the high state of consciousness? That can't happen unless we allow ourselves to face humanity. So it's the work here isn't to use these archetypes and this polarity framework to escape your own humanity. That's not the way it works. Is we're using our humanity to enter our highest state. So it's like when I'm pissed off, when I feel needy, when I feel insecure, I really face that in myself. I create space in myself to face it, and I do my best to not project it. I think, like however you want to phrase it out, I do think it's not correct or the highest way to project our shit at our partners. And that's just a fact. There are moments like a couple of days ago where I just happened. I couldn't fucking hold it anymore. But our goal should not be like, especially men, is that if you're in a frequency of anger and fear, what ends up happening is she goes into survival mode. That's a fact. And that's just truth. If a man's in anger and fear, she will unconsciously go into survival mode. When she's in survival mode, she is in literal, like, she can't be in her feminine. She's in complete cortisol spike, masculine, and it takes a woman a long time to come back from that. Which is so important that a man can face his own fear, his grief, really, his sadness, his anger, himself. What happens to me is I have abandonment issues. My mother died when I was 23. That's my shit. That's what comes up. I can get to a moment where I fear losing her. And that's mine to deal with. That, for instance, if she's, a stupid example, but, if she's out shopping and her phone's off and I don't know where the fuck she is and my instinct to get fear and call a billion times and angry, that's my shit. Not pretty. I will throw my phone in a fucking safe and I'll go sit with myself. I'll be like, this is yours to face. This fear, this terror, this grief you have losing your mom, that's yours to face. And if you project it on her, she won't feel safe and she'll go into survival mode and that's going to create chaos. So I have to use that moment as a way to face my own humanity. And that's the work here is like, face your humanity. And that's the catapult to access that king in you. And when a man can really face himself in that way, that's what creates inner strength. So the space to be human is a space to be human in yourself and face yourself. Where it gets tricky is where she becomes the quote unquote projection board for your own bullshit. And then she ends up essentially living with that demon inside her. Called a demon, called a thought form, called energy, is that if you're constantly projecting that at her and making her a solution to it, she begins to wither away. And that's just the truth here. And that's one direction I want to go in, and we can branch on that. Sorry if my brain's going 80 places. That's what my brain does. Secondly, I grew up in fucking New York City. I went to a liberal private school. I went to Ivy League college. That was a whole, liberal indoctrination camp. I think both sides are bullshit. That's a whole different paradigm. But I was taught that masculinity is incorrect. That women actually want this sweet, kind, nice, loving person who just always coddling them. That women don't want a man. And masculinity is incorrect. I was taught that. I was literally brainwashed to believe that. And I thought it. I thought it was misogynistic to step into leadership, to have a firm no, to be in yourself, to lead, to be a fucking man. I thought it was misogynistic. Whenever I told women I knew, that what I believed in, I would be often told I was misogynist, that I was sexist, that this is incorrect, this is outdated, this is completely wrong, and I believed them for a while. I was like, yeah, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this polarity stuff is actually toxic, and maybe I'm wrong. I believed it, and then I got fucking married, and I realized this is not bullshit. This dimension, why it is the way it is beyond my pay grade. I don't know that. I mean, I can't answer that. I don't think I ever will be able to answer it. What I do know is negative and positive, whatever. This realm is charged by polarity. negative and positive atoms, ions. It's charged with polarity, dark and light. We live in that dual state, and our soul is beyond that for sure. But masculine and feminine polarity is fucking real. It's real, and I'm not shy of saying it anymore. I don't think it's misogynistic to lead. I don't think it's misogynistic to say that I am a man and my strength is in being a man, and a woman's strength is being a woman. We're strong in different ways. That's not misogynistic. It's not toxic, and I don't give a fuck what you think about it. I mean, I have many patients now, and it's like you hear the same shit over and over again. They're suffering and dealing with this. It's the same story over and over again. It's the polarity's off. That the man is leading incorrectly. And women want it deep down. I try to say there's a very big difference with what women say they want and what they actually want. Right? Look at the last 10 guys a woman fucked and say what she wants. It's very different. It's very different. So that's a whole different rabbit hole. But that was a big part of it. Me realizing that this is not misogynistic. This is not toxic. This is the truth. That, and it's fucking, I play it out. If I'm strong and masculine, if I'm grounded, if I'm not reacting, if I'm not being super reactive, angry and fearful, and I'm leading her and taking decisions, saying no, that can't happen, and being that way, and being a bit of an asshole sometimes, not that I want to, just my truth, that the marriage is way better. She is way happier. She wants to have sex with me more. Not that that's the fucking, that's what I'm looking for, that I need that, but it's just like, it's a consequence of that. That's my direct experience. If men are honest with themselves, it's also their experience. So it's like, when the fuck are we going to keep pretending with this shit? I can't do it anymore. And if people want to think that it's misogynistic or toxic or incorrect, I really don't give a fuck. It's the truth.
I love it, and I'm here for it. And I was also indoctrinated on the West Coast where it's soft. And I had to come to my own awakening about this myself. And so I'm curious how you started to practice saying no and leading before even this union and partnership.
Man, I didn't really practice it. I knew basic things, right? I knew it in terms of like game, whatever you want to call that. I knew that just from trial and error, that women reacted well to men asserting a plan, right? So if you're asking a girl out, don't ask her, tell her. That's just something I learned, right? You're saying, I mean, for men are single listening to this, I mean, it took me a while to understand this, but that worked way better than saying, hey, are you free Thursday or Wednesday? Like, that's been my experience, right? So that was awakening to us. Like, a woman react way better when I just say, hey, meet me here at this time, and I'm in that space, versus when I'm more like saying things in a way to get their validation or approval. The less I needed their approval, the less I cared about rejection, the more I got their approval and validation. So that was awakening to me. Is okay, I'm getting a lot more dating success by being quote unquote toxic, by leading. And I was like, okay, even a fucking liberal woman who believe this stuff, like they're reacting well to this. So I was like, well, something's happening here. Like, we're being told a fucking lie. Something was happening. So that was awakening to it. I hadn't been in a relationship yet with these dynamics. And what ended up happening, surprisingly, is that, I started to realize I had undealt with grief from the loss of my mother. And I wasn't saying no when I wanted to say no. I was doing things I didn't want to do, especially surrounding, certain things with her own family and my own family. And just I didn't set limits. I didn't know how to say no. And it was causing a pain. I was like, I finally found a woman. I'm doing things I don't want to do. I don't want to be here at this thing. I don't enjoy it. And it was like betraying myself, and I could feel her feel me. And then I just didn't understand it. I was like, aren't I supposed to make her happy? Happy wife, happy life. Isn't she supposed to be happy? Why am I dealing with this? And then that's when I realized, that's when it broke. I was like, this is not the way. I can't do this. And it was actually when I faced my own grief, processed it properly and created space for it, that I didn't have fear of loss. And I don't want to lose her, but I don't fear losing her. Like, if me being me and leading and honoring my truth, honoring my no, makes her leave, then fuck it. That's the place men have to be. Is that, if I am saying my truth, if I'm honoring myself, I'm being real, and she wants to leave me, fuck it. And I know my wife and I have a soul contract, yada yada. I get it, but I have to be in that frequency. Like, again, I don't want to lose her. I love her very much. She's my girl, but I don't fear losing her. Because I fear losing her, then I can't honor myself. So I think it's important for Like that was my awakening. So it's important for men to understand that if they actually didn't have a fear of losing them, and they had their own self-worth locked in, they had their own sense of power locked in, they wouldn't lead from a place. So you're either leading from a place of fearing loss, or you're leading from a place of integrity. Most men are people pleasing, being nice guys, because they're afraid of losing the person, and that's not strength. You're operating from the frequency of fear, and same with a lot of the red pill leadership. It's control. Don't do this. Don't do that. Can't go here. Can't go that. Don't wear this. Don't wear that. There's some truth to that. I'm not fully against that, but that's also leading from fear. It's like you have to basically, put a burqa over her and watch over her constantly because you're afraid of her cheating on you. That's also leading from fear. So I don't know if I answered it correctly, but I through my own experience in marriage and being at a place where we were having constant arguments, we were fighting a lot, and it got to a place where she really was like, if this dynamic keeps happening in a month or two, I can't do this. And I sat with myself being like, it hit me hard and it was brutal, but it was like, okay, yeah, I love her, I don't want to lose this. I was like, but why are we arguing so much? I was like, I'm doing the right things, I'm saying yes, I'm being nice to her, I'm being loving. Why are we arguing so much? And then it hit me. And then we're now at a place where we have a argument maybe every fucking 2-3 weeks, and it's much different. But then I was like fucking every 2-3 days, there's a massive blow up. And the only thing that changed was me really stepping into my power, my leadership, and being a quote unquote toxic misogynist. That's what changed. We don't argue anymore, in the way we used to, and that's the only thing that changed. So that was my experience.
I truly respect your willingness to honor your truth to the depth of being unattached and willing to let go of the relationship if that's what it takes. Not that would happen in this circumstance, but that's the length that is required to be willing and so committed to one's own leadership, power, intuition, trust, and knowing that it would be okay if she were to choose to leave, and you would be okay on the other side of that. Truly respect that. And there was something that she reflected to you recently in a share, that what she values most about you is your mental strength. And from when we first connected and bonded over a mental illness, so from going from mental illness to mental strength, I would love to understand how that journey took place, and basically where you were some time ago being diagnosed with a mental health disorder, myself having had one myself, and then now getting to this place of mental strength in the way that I see you today.
When I was 19, 20, around there, I was on a concoction of pharmaceutical medications. I tried multiple SSRIs, Adderall, Klonopin, mood stabilizers, and that concoction almost killed me. I was highly suicidal. Actively suicidal. I really didn't want. I didn't want to be the most active thought form for me. Where I don't want to be here. I want to die. And I do believe that was a direct result of the concoction medications I was on and the mixture that I had on my consciousness. Really, they're just demons filtering through your brain. In my opinion. So then I got off all that, thankfully, but I still believe that, I had a different psychiatrist who I thought was better, who was a very fancy, high-level one that all people said, this is the guy, he knows his shit. He was like, you're bipolar, so all these SSRIs and things are making it worse, so just take this lithium and you're good. So I thought, okay, fair enough. I'm bipolar. This lithium is what I need. I don't need anything else. Fair enough. I get it. Manic depressive, people, I see Kanye West out there going crazy. Like, that makes sense. Maybe I'm one of those people. I'm very creative. I can have manic moments where I'm like, I can do 80 things in a day. Cool. That's me. And then, I only got off of them maybe 6-7 months ago. I got off lithium fully. Because I just didn't understand it well enough that, this is where things get fucking complicated, but hey, we're honoring our truth. There can't be a personality disorder because there is no personality. Personality is an illusion. It's a construct we create in our minds. Like, every personality disorder. That's a hot take, but every single personality is an illusion. The only truth is awareness and love. So the actual creation of our ego as a separate individual, that's separate from God, separate from love, that's an illness that we all have. That's a disease of society, is to believe we're separate from God. We're separate from oneness. The ego is a disease. So there is no such thing as a disordered person. Of course, there's like different levels of personalities that are fucked up. People can be, narcissistic and egoistic, but everyone's personality is a personality issue. So, that's when I realized that, a therapist and psychiatry can hand you a better ego, but it's still an ego. Spirituality is what helps you transcend it. You can't kill it fully, but it helps you transcend it. So I got into that. I was like, I really started having an awakening of the sense of, I had awakenings that, in the new age way of, Kundalini stuff, and you start, seeing things and hearing things. That's all cool and fun and dandy. But I had a real spiritual awakening, which was that of awareness, that the real truth of who we are is the blank space between thoughts. That's our nature. Gnostics call it the monad, or whatever it is. I've been there. I had acupuncture once, and my acupuncturist hit a point in me, and I literally accessed the monad. I was pure awareness. I was everything all at once. And I then shot back into my body, and I was like, who the fuck is this idiot who thinks they're separate from this? For minutes, I was like, what the fuck is this? But I accessed that. I was like, that's who we are. That's what, Ramana Maharshi, all these, the Buddha, all these saints were arguing, that our nature is I am, is pure awareness. And the more that, and the path towards self-realization is a whole different fucking rabbit hole that we're talking about, but we're going everywhere. It's cool. Self-realization is a consequence of remaining in the I am state as much as you can. The more self-realized you are, the more you are immersed in that presence. And the less self-realized, the more egoistic you are, the more time you spend in thought as a separate self. That's, Buddhism and nirvana and, enlightenment in a nutshell in 30 seconds. So to bring it back here is, I thought, okay, if my personality is an illusion, if all I am is a average of my thoughts, then how am I bipolar? Like, okay, I have negative thoughts sometimes, positive thoughts sometimes. I know my nervous system is dysregulated, and that creates that. So I was like, yeah, I don't buy this. I do not recommend doing what I do. Follow your own path, do what you got to do. I literally was like, fuck this, I'm out. I just stopped taking pills. And what I did notice was that I was very low for about a month. I was very low. I felt depressed, but I was just tired. And what I did in that moment was that I didn't enter any thoughts about that. I allowed myself to be low and tired and down. And I just was like, okay, I can tolerate lowness, I can tolerate fatigue. But living in a hell of my own negative thoughts about it is a different experience. So I just let myself be low and down. And then I started regulating my nervous system. I started learning how to be at peace with myself. I learned to exist beyond thought. And then I'm not bipolar. I don't even know that's real. That's a whole different debate and conversation. But I was told I'm bipolar by a highest level psychiatrist possible in the world. I was given a pill I thought that they told me I'd need for the rest of my life. And I got rid of it, and I stopped taking it, and I am doing better than I've ever done in my whole life, just by not believing in that. Also, different rabbit hole, but there's studies out now that people with multiple personality disorders, one personality can be blind, and one personality has perfect vision. How is that? How is that possible? What I realized is that whatever you believe about yourself is reality you create. So if I believed I was bipolar and manic depressive, I was essentially plugging a code into my brain, which is a computer, to create the reality for myself. That I believed I was a bipolar kid who was manic depressive, who had all these things. That was a belief I plugged into the supercomputer of my brain, and then pressed enter and created this whole reality of. So I just deleted the code. Again, this is not medical advice. Don't follow what I did. You can listen to me and see what you agree with. But that was my experience.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, man. It's inspiring because I remember when I was first diagnosed with bipolar disorder, there was nobody that I was aware of that had overcome this narrative, this belief that was implanted in me in a very vulnerable time. And there was somebody I went to, highly regarded psychiatrist at UCSF, who told me that this was going to be a lifelong sentence and that this was something I was going to have to be and deal with for the rest of my life. And what isn't talked about a lot is the work on the other side of getting off of the medication, and being willing to feel tired or fatigued and not associate meaning to that we're depressed or something's wrong with us or we're broken or need fixing, or all the narratives that are so deeply entrenched that come along with that. And it's inspiring. It's inspiring to me to know and see the shift that you've taken. And, there's somebody out here who's considering or has been on meds for a long time, is open to something more. Obviously, this is not medical advice. We're just two people sharing our lived experience. But what would you say to that person?
I would say to them that, first and foremost, I'm speaking as someone who was on I've been on fucking more than 10 different medications. I've been almost admitted to a psychiatric ward by myself, really, because I thought I was a danger to people. I've been as fucking crazy as someone can be crazy. I've been that cat. I thought that was my life. It wasn't just one simple SSRI, 5 milligram Lexapro. It was a whole fucking, Halloween trick or treat candy bag of bullshit. I was there. And now I'm someone who's genuinely at peace, happy. I still have my shit, I still have my issues for sure, but I'm doing very well. I have a beautiful wife. I have a career and purpose I love. I believe I'm a good family member. I don't know what they think about that, but that's all possible. And the impediment to that is that the withdrawal of the medication and all that is true. I get it, but what could be more worthy than freedom? What can be more worthy than to be your own healer? I learned this, that to be your own healer is to be your own feeler, to learn to feel yourself. And when you feel yourself, you're healing yourself. The more we sit with our negative emotions and open heart understanding, the more these things turn into nothing, into love, really. That's how we heal ourselves. I know that. I know that as a fact now. I've experienced it. I see it happen in real time with patients. I know it's the case. Healing is not numbing through pills. It's not that. You could be temporarily fixing something, as you're taking Advil or something. There's validity to that. Or smoking weed or taking alcohol. I'm not shaming anyone. I was that person, but it's not healing. It's just masking and numbing. You cannot heal something if you're not feeling it. You're blocking it. That's just a fact. So it's like, if you want to be free, if you want to feel healed, if you want to live the life you want to live as your highest free self, then I recommend that you learn to investigate and discover what you've been blocking. What has been so hard for you to feel? Like, you're taking a pill because you can't feel something. You go in a psychiatrist's office, you go in a therapist's office, not because you have a thought, you can't think your way through something. That's bullshit. You can't feel your way through something. So anyone is just blocking off their own sensation and feeling because they have trauma. And when you have trauma, your ego designs intelligently ways to not let yourself feel those feelings again. So I tell those people that the solution lies in feeling your feelings, that there's no way of avoiding that. There's no bypassing that. And same to those who think that ketamine and fucking ayahuasca are the way to transcend, which is not true. It can be a tool, but ultimately us feeling ourselves and sitting with ourselves is a medicine. That is true spirituality, that is true shamanism. It's just to teach someone to sit with themselves and face themselves. It's pretty simple, but it is the only effective solution. So I tell those people that I honor you, I get you, I was there, I know how horrible it is, but I also know that your freedom, your ability to be sovereign and true in yourself is a consequence of you learning to feel what you've been blocking and avoiding. I don't know too much about the withdrawals. I've been through it. It's only as bad as you make it. That's my take. So if you make a whole story about it being like the worst thing ever, I don't know. This is complicated. I could get fucking arrested for saying this shit, but it's like, I see people who got off way less than medication I've been on, and it's like years of them making this story. It's like, oh my God, this whole thing. I don't know how true that is. I don't know. I think they're just at a place where, sure, there's a real effect. This just has your brain. It fucking fries your brain. I get it for sure. But it's okay to allow yourself to, break down. to feel everything and be chaotic for a certain period of time. That's all right. So give yourself that space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for that. That was my process too. I had to give myself space, to fully let go and feel all the grief and suppressed emotions. But you're right. There's really only one way through, and that's to be with what is. And we can't selectively numb when we're taking these pills. It blunts sensation from fear to bliss. And that's something I had to come to terms with and reconcile within myself and accept that, okay, if I'm willing to continue to take these medications based upon a label and diagnosis somebody else placed in me, then I've got to be willing to not feel the full spectrum of life and enjoy the freedom that's on the other side of it. So it's really, really empowering, for you to share that. And
Must add something here. You go to psychiatric wards. A lot of people are fully psychic.
Mhm.
They're very gifted. Schizophrenics have access to realms we don't know about. Some of them also are hallucinating that things aren't real. But within every person with a mental illness is someone who just can't fit into the matrix box of what they should be like. So if you have ADHD, if you're depressed, if you're anxious, if you're hallucinating in certain ways, sure, there may be some things to work out there. It could be a trauma response, but these people are very gifted. And not everyone can fit a fucking, be able to be numb enough to sit behind a screen at Microsoft for 12 hours a day. Some people can do that. I can't fucking do that. I literally want to kill myself. So it's like, that's who I am. I need to create. I need to be able to create art. I have to be able to, read and be inspired and to, go fight people and work out. That's who I am. And a lot of these people are like, think of a doctor in their mind, psychiatrist. What is their version of an ideal human? Ask that. And what it literally is someone who's a numb robot. That's their solution. That they think that the ideal archetype for a human being is someone to shut off themselves from emotion, to be essentially numb, and to just agree with the fucking lunacy of society, to be okay with the complete inversion that this matrix creates. That's what they think is ideal. So if they're treating you and diagnosing you to be someone like that, of course their fucking solutions aren't going to work. So you're human, you're different, you have skills, you have gifts. They know nothing about that. All they know is how to mold you to someone that the matrix can feed off of. That's it. So just know their system isn't the truth. They actually don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Mm-hmm. If you want to be a numbed out psychopath or an NPC who just follows the orders of the system, go for it. But not me.
I fully agree. Those folks that we're speaking to, ourselves included, are the mystics, are the cultural creatives, are the ones who are artists and can't be put inside of any boxes. And it's because of the latent and dormant potential, the connection to the divine and spirit, that this reality, the matrix, is excruciatingly painful. Mm-hmm. And no wonder we have to, or have had to, lean on medications, whether that be self-medication, drugs, alcohol, you name it, to numb and relate to what it is this society has presented to us. So I hear you. And underneath that and on the other side is some of the most powerful and greatest potential people that we have, which I'm a firm believer of, and I have a place in my heart for those. And so now we're talking about, let's transition over into some of the spirituality realms and some of these traps of the new age and, mm-hmm. and what we've got, because, I have certainly been deep into new age spirituality. And then on the other side, recognize the simplicity of that. So how do you see spirituality at this point in your journey? And what is that to you?
Spirituality to me at this point is being laid out naked in everything to really understand who you are at your core. As I said, my own spiritual understanding and my experiences is that at our core, we are loving awareness. We are love, we are awareness. That's who we are. And to be love and awareness, and to really be there in this human experience, is to essentially lay out yourself naked, to strip yourself down of everything, every attachment, every point of suffering, every grasping and addiction, and to regulate your nervous system to a state where you are that loving awareness. That to me is spirituality, is to allow us to transcend the limitations and small limiting beliefs of the ego, and to reconnect. And in Jungian psychology, it's called conjunctio, is when the higher self and the ego merge as one. That's completion. That means that your karma is done, wherever you believe that to be, that your soul's at a place of you're done with this realm. That's when your ego and higher self are one. And that really is that you exist in a primary state of love and awareness, that you exist beyond a selfish need to be separate from that. So I'd say spirituality to me is in the highest level is regulation, is learning to regulate yourself when you are non-regulated. That nervous system regulation is prayer to me. That's prayer. And to really catch yourself when you are attached to external outcomes to validate your own peace. And that's why relationships are so beautiful to me, because, it's like, if I need my wife's mood to be perfect for me to be happy, if I need her approval for me to be happy, that's my work. That's mine to face. And so I learned that to be spirituality. And I'm not saying that, different realms don't exist, for sure. I still see them. Spirits do exist. Dark spirits do exist. I see them. I hear them. We are in a spiritual war. There are ET, all that stuff. Fucking lizard people, whatever you want to call it. I believe in all that stuff. Akashic records, you name it. I've been there. I get it. But that's all part of the dream. That's all part of the matrix. In my understanding, that anything that's not pure loving awareness is part of the illusion, is part of the dream. So, I had this experience where I fall into these dreams lately, where it's so vivid, it feels like fucking years past my dreams. It's wild. And I wake up like nothing happened. That was a dream. This is that. This is a dream. It gets into tricky spiritual territory, but when this ends, God just wakes up and is like, okay, cool. That it was an experience that we're having, but at the end of the day, it's really just nothing. So it's everything and nothing. In this realm, it's all real or human, but at the end of the day, it's also nothing. It's a fucking blip. It's a dream. So true spirituality to me is to understand that this is a dream, that this is an experience that God's having to be separate and come back to love. We can honor that experience, but a lot of these spiritual New Age teachings keep us more stuck in the dream, more trapped in the dream, but in a different dream, like different realms and spirits and beings. That's all part of the same dream to me. So Ramana Maharshi, which is one of my favorite teachers, followers are asking, what happens to heaven? Is heaven still the same dream? It's still the same dream. So I think true spiritual work is connecting with that loving awareness, to be humble and brave enough to let go of the illusion that we're separate. And all the new spirituality stuff is just enhancing the sense of separateness through feeling like you're the chosen one. That if you're gifted, if you have gifts, if you can access truth and wisdom and heal people, that's you. So a lot of healers and gifted people and people who take psychedelics think it's them who have these gifts, them who's healing. When if you're actually a healer, it's that you got out of your own way and you became a vehicle and a messenger for God's love. That's healing, is that your ego is checked well enough where you can be a medium of divine light. That's true spirituality. So for me, I am someone who has those gifts. I am someone who quote psychic and whatever you want to call it. But whenever that information comes through, it's usually in sessions. I'm very careful to be like, had nothing to do with me as Lucas. Lucas got out of the way, and I'm now I can receive information. But in the past, when I was younger and those things happened, I was convinced it was Lucas. That's New Age spirituality. Is that like it's Satanism in my eyes, and not trying to explain that carefully. Satan is the archetype of the chosen one. That he was so gifted that he thought he was beyond God. That he was the chosen one, really. And that's New Age spirituality. Is that you believe you're so gifted, and that gifts are not. That it's you really. That it's you who has these gifts. You who can access these realms. When in reality, it's not you. It never was you, because you's an illusion. So that's my my answer. Is to just really, I think, to summarize it, is spirituality to me is getting out of your own way. Really, getting out of your own way.
Beautiful. It's, to me, that same path of letting go, centered surrender. It's the internal work to humble the ego and check when the spiritual ego gets in the way, because that's something that I certainly cultivated along the way with these practices and these Kundalini awakenings and these dreams and all these gifts that have been here for me. Just coming back to humility, coming back to service, and how do I just give of my, from that place of spirit and not from my mind and the thoughts that cloud that. Such a gift, man. I'd love to hear, as we wrap this up, what is a dream or a prayer that you're living into now that hasn't fully realized yet?
There's two prayers I think people should have is, some level of prayer for what their intention is for their own experience of reality, but also a prayer for society, and a prayer for the collective. So I'd say the answer to that is my own prayer for myself is always to live in my true nature, to clear things that stand in the way. So that's my prayer always, is to let me live in that state of love and awareness as best I can, and to show me what stands in the way. That's my prayer, really. And when I actually do pray for something, we're all human, we want outcomes sometimes. What I do is I either think of it or I write it down, and then I surrender it. I do my best to say, okay, I want this to happen. And I feel like, what if it didn't happen? I'm still okay. I get to a place of surrender. I'm like, I don't need this thing. I let it go. That usually ends up working for me. It's an inverse prayer. It's like kind of saying, like, writing down what you actually want and thinking, do I need this? And then feeling like I'm okay without it, and then giving it to God, feeling like I surrender. That's my own way of praying, really.
That's almost an opportunity to see where we're striving or what we feel that we need or want, and then doing the inverse. Very counterintuitive to feel, where that is and be with that.
Yeah.
I love that practice, man.
So, and then the collective one for me is, it's a long shot, but it really is that humans learn to tolerate ease. That's the big one, because we live in a culture that's addicted to conflict and gossip. We think we're watching movies on TV, but we're living in the movie. And the movie is the news, the podcasts, alternative podcasts, the Instagram feed. That's the movie we're living in. So I think my prayer, and I'm not great at this either. I still fucking love listening to conspiracy stuff and stuff. I'm doing my best with that. But it's like, let's stop being so obsessed with the Matrix. Let's stop being so obsessed with, the 80 different theories of who killed Charlie Kirk. Like, I get it, but it's like all that's doing is taking you away from your center and your true nature. So I'd say to people that, like, stop being so obsessed with the Matrix. And, I understand it's important to understand the game and all that, but for only giving our energy to this realm, to news and tabloids and to 80 podcasts and to 100 Instagram reels and our own family drama, I'd say to watch for that. That our addiction to drama is what the ego feeds off of. To always need a reason to suffer. To always need a story to entertain. That's the ego's game. So I say my prayer for humans to learn to tolerate ease. When I feel God the deepest, it's when I'm at a fucking, massage parlor and I have a towel on my head and, I just had a massage, I'm just chilling. There's nothing. That's when I feel God the closest. The Asian music and the swan songs, and you're there just chilling, the cold towel on your head. That's when I feel God the closest. I sat with that. That's actually when I feel God the closest. When I got a massage, I'm chilling there, towel on my head. That's when I feel God. I'm like, why? It's because I'm tolerating ease. I'm tolerating just like pure peace and joy. I don't need a fucking, conspiracy podcast. I don't need to watch CNN. I don't need anything. I'm pure. I'm chilling. I was like, can we live in that state? Like, I don't want to only access that at the massage parlor. Can humans learn to see that as divine and not this constant show of like 80 different podcasts?
That's such a beautiful nuance, because when I'm able to similarly find ease and acceptance in the present moment, that is it. And thoughts subside. There's a boundaryless nature between me that's interconnecting me to all things. And, that's in so many ways what I'm seeking and a prayer that I have as well. And it's amazing that we find these moments of presence in the massage parlor or, in a float tank or walking around in nature. And for me, it's embracing the simplicity that entails and the ease that comes with it. So beautiful. And you were alluding to ease, being a prayer, for society. And maybe this is it, but I'm curious if you have anything else. Is there a prayer that you're living into that may not come to fruition in your lifetime? That's a multi-generational prayer that you're holding, in your heart.
In what way?
For me, I just recognize there are certain things that I'm not going to be able to see come to fruition in my own lifetime. One of mine is to end the vocabulary, the stigma, even the language around mental illness, and that may take multiple generations. So is there a prayer that or dream that you have in your consciousness that you're living into now that may be a couple of generations to realize?
I wish more people understood the darkness behind what runs this realm, what runs this game. What keeps us stuck in this experience is that we believe that those who run the game have our highest interest in mind, that those who run the media, the government, uh, different organizations, that we should trust them. Even stuff beyond that. So I think it's would hearten me to see. I think we're getting there, but for people to really understand that this reality is an illusion, that everything in this reality is designed to keep you stuck in your ego, to keep you stuck in the game. And that's what I call the matrix, is that everything in this society and this culture is designed to keep you stuck in your personality, and your ego, and your fear. That we live in a fear-based system that feeds off your fear. And the way to escape is live in love. So I think that more people understood that this realm is the realm of illusion. Buddha called it Maya. We live in order of Maya. To really get to a place where we understand that and see that. We can see the illusion, the movie, laugh at it, face it, and heal the darkness. But, it all begins with people understanding and seeing the darkness that exists here. That's why I think another part of spiritual New Ageism is the whole love and light bullshit. Love and light is real outside of here. In here, it's not fucking real. It's a potential we can tap into, but it's not the dominant frequency here. We live in a fear-based culture and in a system that feeds on fear, and fear is a currency here. So I think I wish people saw that and then learned to transcend it.
Thank you for sharing your prayers in that. And you have been a prolific creator and writer for some time, and now you're really stepping into healing and guiding others in this way. What are some of the patterns that you're seeing people face, and how can people find you if they want to do deeper work with you?
What ends up happening is I get people coming to me with a problem, a serious problem in their external reality. Often a marriage or relationship that they're deeply sad with or unhappy with, or their job or their purpose isn't there. What I help them see is that that's only a consequence of their unconscious blockages and their own unconscious blindedness to their pain. That life reflects your nervous system state. Life reflects what you have to heal. And I help people and teach people to see what's happening in their life externally as a reminder to check in themselves as to what's creating that reality, right? Because if you're truly healed and loving and you're aligned with your higher self, you're at peace, you're at ease, you wouldn't be in a toxic relationship that you're yelling at each other every night. That's just not possible. If you really had a strong connection to your word and your wisdom and your power, you wouldn't feel terrified to make an Instagram post about what you have to say to the world. So that's what I try and do, is to help people who often seek an external solution, which is valid sometimes, to an issue, but what ends up happening almost is that they can then connect the dots to see what wound in myself that I've yet to face is creating my experience in the world. So we only experience in the world what we face in ourselves to heal. If you want, people who experience true abundance and joy and peace are people who've cleared the pathways in themselves to be a vessel of love and light. But that's the consequence of facing our own darkness, our own shadows. So there's no escaping facing our own darkness, our own wounding in this dimension. Doesn't exist. I wish it would someday, but it's not the case. So yeah, if you're someone who wants to be brave enough to do that work, then sure, work with me. I offer one-on-one sessions mainly. My Instagram's Lucas _Salame, a New Age Sage podcast on YouTube, and my website is just lucassalame.com. But if you're someone who wants to face that, right? We often think that changing our external reality is a consequence of solving a problem outside of us, which it sometimes is, but it almost always is that we have to heal inside ourselves what's reflecting outside of ourselves. Each person's body and mind is a hologram. Each individual person is a hologram that creates a reality from within their own body. So anything unhealed in the body will reflect out the hologram into reality. So it's like, if I have unhealed wounding in my hologram, it'll attract an experience of the matchup vibration. It's not thought forms. We have negative thoughts, all these things. It's actually our own nervous system. It's our own body. So if you clear that, then the hologram begins to reflect things that reflect that healed aspect of you. When I was terrified of abandonment, I would attract relationships that reflected that. When I healed that, I have a marriage that has no fear in it. So it really experience and attract in what we have yet to heal. So I just tell people connect those dots and do that work to clear that. Yeah.
Lucas, thank you for sharing your wisdom, man. This was such a gift of a conversation, talking about relationships, polarity, nervous system regulation, spirituality, gosh, and everything in between. Thank you so much for taking the time here, man. And in the meantime, go live your life.
Yes, sir. My pleasure. Thank you.
Peace.
Thank you for tuning in to the Vital Path podcast. If you found value in today's episode, share the love with someone who comes to mind. It's free, they'll appreciate it, and together we'll keep this community growing. Until next time, God bless you, and go live your life.